Alright, so in today's video we're going to continue with the Big Book of Drawing, and the second book in the Big Book is Draw Real Animals. So just some examples. Table of contents. It's when I'm actually filming this on Easter, so here's a rabbit for you. You can do it. Drawing anything realistic, or in a more realistic style, is pretty intimidating, you know. And this says this is by a 12-year-old, so first attempt and then second attempt. This is an 11-year-old. And that's just after 2 attempts. Imagine if you did more. Using the right material. Looks like they're going to cover the grid, which essentially you take a complex figure and you break it down into shapes in these little squares, and it enables you to redraw the subject. What's really cool is you can make these grids larger or smaller. And so you can enlarge or shrink the image and still have it be accurate. This looks like this may be like a tiger or something. Or a graph, that's what they call it. This is done by a 12-year-old. See, this is what I'm talking about. You can change the size of the grid. And if you look, for instance, in 15, you've just got this very simple line. And so it's easy to transfer that as opposed to, the whole complex shape or complex lines. You've got one that's upside down. And I think this is to help you be more accurate with your lines, because when it's turned right side up, you sort of have a preconceived idea of what the shape should be or what the line should be. And when you turn it upside down, you lose that. So you can actually get a more accurate drawing if you flip it upside down. Covering shading. And these, I know they covered this in the first book, but this scale, this value scale, this is really helpful because you know, some of these areas need to be the darkest dark, and some of them need to be, you know, the whitest white. And whatever tools you're working with, you need to know what you can, what is the darkest, what is the lightest, so that you know where you want to, you know, put that darkest dark and the lightest light. Step-by-step shading. This is helpful. Basic shapes again. Now you can turn an egg shape into a little mouse. So multiple shapes making up the face and the body. See, in this breakdown, this is really helpful. And this is in a lot of different drawing books. They break it down into its most basic shapes, and then from there you make little adjustments, little changes. Some more examples. Guess you could draw along if you wanted to. Maybe that's what I should do. I should do that in a video, right? Follow the steps. Polar bear. So something that's, you know, white fur, that's really different shades of gray, with like the whitest whites essentially being the highlights. So you've got something over here that's white and something over here that's black. But, you know, not all, it's all different shades of grays, right? So let's see how they do the Labrador. See different shapes. See, even this looks complex, right? But these shapes are breaking down, you know, the darkest darks, for instance. Look at that. Make sure you can see that without the reflection. That's pretty cool. That looks intimidating, right? But you can see the shapes, right? Acting as like guides for the shading. And then you get that, and it's very subtle. Very subtle. Okay, using the grid. That looks pretty good. More eye, well, not more eyes, but eyes. Again, using these shapes as a guide to how to do your shading. This is pretty good. Again, these shapes acting as guides. See, when you break it down like this, I think it makes it much more accessible to everyone, you know? And you look at this, you go, oh my god, where do I even start? Well, that's where you start. Cat noses. Again, this book is very helpful, giving you plenty of examples, you know, basic shapes, more shapes that guide the shading, and then plenty of examples. How to do fur and hair. Again, it's the same process in the beginning. You know, just doing different shapes, doing the darkest darks, and then working your way up. And then I would have meant, yeah, at the end is when you add the hair strokes. I think that a lot of beginners would, well, maybe, I'm not sure, but would think, you know, oh, well, you start with the hair and work your way from there. But the thing is, the hair has to be last, because if you make mistakes and you have to go through with an eraser, it kind of messes up the hair, right? But this is where you start. Pages are sticking to my hand. Short hair, layered fur. I think the eyes are so important. You know, a lot of character. This is done by a 10-year-old. A lot of character comes through from the eyes alone. 12-year-old. 14. This is done by a 10-year-old. That's really good. You can bend. Okay. What's going on with these pages? They don't want to bend properly. Oh, look at this little guy. Get my hand out of the way. See, I think people who have pets and they're into drawing would love to be able to draw their pets, right? Got your shading scale. Start with basic shapes. Move on to the darkest darks. Seeing your scale, right? So it's step 1, step 2, 3, 4, until you get to the whitest whites. Shaggy hair. Wow, look at this one. It's pretty cool. See, once you get to the basics down, drawing any animal, like it seems like the skills build off of each other, and then you just apply them in different ways, you know. I still think the eyes are really important, though. You focus on getting those eyes right, and get the feel and the character of the animal. Textures, like the different, I wish you can see that. I'm not sure if you can see that, but you know how an elephant's skin has, I guess you'd call it wrinkles or just the lines. Again, the process is the same. Basic shapes, basic lines, darkest darks, work your way out, and then at the very end, that's when you're going to add all those different lines and not scales, but I guess just textures, right? There's some scales for you. And a fish. Can I add those scales at the very end? Smooth skin. Basic shapes, basic lines, darkest darks. A lot of good information in this book. Okay, yeah, when you're getting complex. So, you know, beginner, you look at this and go, man, where do I start? Horses, always popular. I think I will do a video. I'll do the grayscale, the grid. See, what you can do is, if you have a picture, you draw a grid over the picture, and then you can easily transfer it over. See, that's not cheating, that's just making sure that you get the proportions correct and the placement right. You know, if you want to recreate, you know, your animal correctly, you know, this is almost necessary. you know, unless you've drawn your animals so much that you know the proportions, you know, from memory, but, you know, that grid really helps you get everything lined up and in its correct place. Patterns, little frog, basic shapes, darkest darks, work your way out. It's chapter 8 already. See, and I've always been intimidated by this stuff, you know? You're drawing a leopard, and just all these different spots, or a tiger. See, look at these eyes. Almost looks sad. Giraffe. And here's your picture. You know, you break it down into a grid. It's pretty good. Can you guys see that? It's kind of far away, but you know, the eye doesn't really come through, but eye looks spot on. Looks like I got like eraser bits or something in here. Like someone was, I don't know, practicing on top of this. That's one of the things I don't like about secondhand books. Like I don't like when people write in them or draw on them, or even when they bend the pages or something. I don't like that. I'm doing birds. Feathers are always challenging. But again, basic lines and shapes. Darkest darks, work your way out. Last thing you do is texture. Composition now, okay. See here you've got fur, you've got smooth bits, and then you've got texture. So applying, now is where we're putting everything together, right? So you've got fur, smooth, texture. I guess the fur could be considered texture as well. So I'm gonna work on getting my name. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. The artist is signing their name as a part of the image, kind of hiding it in there. Like here, you can see it here. Get the light not to reflect. It's the artist's name, Hammond. See, and once you get the basics down, then you can start, oh, I want the bird to be doing something funny, or, you know, add your own little twist. setting. So we focused on the subject, so to speak, and now adding the scenery or the background. And in the last chapter, or the last section of this book, there's a lot on landscape and basic trees and plants and structures. And so now you can take your subject and put them in an environment. And again, when you look at this, right, all these different leaves and different shapes and grasses, and what they do is they simplify it so that the message gets across. This is grass, that's a tree. That's a log. I think that's a log. Maybe it's water. I think it's a log, though. And then the trees in the background are nothing more than, just smudges of gray. So I think even if you found this book full price, this is probably worth it. This book is covering what, obviously multiple books would cover. Squirrel. Okay, I think that's it. Secret to Drawing Realistic Faces is next. Everything that we learned in these other two sections is probably really going to apply here. Let's give you a sneak peek. Yeah, it's definitely going to, because, when you're drawing people's faces, it's very easy to tell when something's off. Like this girl knows what she looks like, and the people who know her know what she looks like. So if the nose is too high, or the eyes are too close, or, look at these teeth, they're very unique. If you don't get those teeth right, then it's a dead giveaway. And the grid and all the steps, the hair, the lines in the hair are going to be applied last, right? Everything that we just learned is going to really help with this. These are done by this is a separate artist. Probably specializes in portraits. There you go. With an animal. And really simple background. Yeah. It's very expressive. All right, well, that's what you have to look forward to in the next one.